Hi and welcome. I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, Presbyterian minister of 3 congregations in Eastern Ontario, and I'm also the questioning pastor. Today's question is particularly difficult and certainly would require a lot more time to answer to everyone's satisfaction. It's why is God so cruel? Which contains within it the question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Why does God allow suffering? It's a question that every religion has to deal with in some way. For some religions, they are polytheistic. It makes it easy. So I'm going to pick ancient Greece and Rome. Is you could have a sky god, Zeus, Jupiter, a water god, Poseidon, Neptune, whatever, fertility goddess. And then you could say, okay, well, you're praying to a fertility goddess and you've got walking disorder. Well, of course, she's not going to heal you. Who are you going to pray for healing? Because you have to find the God that's responsible for allowing that disease or that suffering to occur. And so it's simple to explain suffering is you've been praying to the wrong person. Or you could say reincarnation. You were somehow evil in your past life, and now you're paying for the suffering in this life. So those are ways that other religions have dealt with suffering in the world. Monotheistic religions have a problem because we say there's only one God. He created everything. He controls everything. Nothing can exist without his permission. So why does he allow evil to exist? And we're dead. Dead set in that question. Dead stop. Why does God allow evil to exist? In Christianity, we have it even more difficult because fundamental to our faith is the belief that God is love. God demonstrated his love by sending us Jesus. So Jesus is that expression of God's love in the world. And so you go, okay, God has all power. He can control everything. He's responsible for evil existing. He's love. And we also say he's goodness. And then we're stuck. How can a good God who actually does love us allow suffering to exist? And that's a question that, frankly, most of us would like to avoid. We'd like to avoid asking. We'd like to avoid answering. Part of the answer goes back to Adam and Eve. Now, it doesn't matter whether they actually existed or not. That's another question, and it's actually a lot easier to answer. But God could have created human beings so that we would always do God's will. It'd be, yes, sir, no, sir. You want us to jump, sir? How high, sir? We would do God's will and never, ever do anything else. Our lives would be good. We would basically there'd be no suffering, and we would basically be puppets. And that's created if God had created us without free will. But that's not what God wanted. He wanted us to worship him or to follow him freely. So he gave us freedom of choice, which meant we had the freedom of choice to say yes to God and freedom of choice to say no to God. If we said no to God, like Adam and Eve did, then you are basically rejecting God's goodness. And if you're rejecting the goodness, you've now turned your back on what's good. You're now allowing evil into the world. And because it's freedom of choice, God has to step back and allow us to experience the consequences of our actions. You might say, wait a second, A baby who's born sick or a baby who dies, has not, where's the freedom of choice there? They're not responsible. They haven't made any choices. They're still babies. And the answer to that is basically whatever Adam and Eve did has basically been passed on through time and space. We live in a fallen world. It's not just individuals who've made bad choices. The consequences have impacted nature. So we end up with things like climate change, wars, natural disasters, all sorts of evil that's way beyond an individual choice. So the suffering is massive. And God allows it to happen. And again, we're back to why. When Jesus lived, there were basically three questions people wanted to know. Does God know what's going on in the world? Does God care? And is God able to do something about it? And Jesus showed us, he answered all three. Yes, God knows what suffering is. He knows everything that's going on. He experienced persecution, betrayal. Whether he experienced sickness, I don't know. The only thing I can say that he did not experience was giving birth, because he came to us as a male human being. So he never got pregnant and never gave birth. But he came to us and experienced what most of us experience. Does he love? Yes. We see in his actions great compassion. Where there was need, he met the need. He healed the sick. He fed the hungry. He looked after people who needed help. And in that process, he showed not just compassion, but he also showed he had the power to do something. So we turn to God, because this is basically what God is asking every person, and we believe it is asking every Christian, everyone who turns to Jesus, is, will you let God into our lives to work in us and through us to bring back that goodness? Will you use your freedom of choice to turn towards God and let him make a difference in your life and in your world? So that is the choice that every Christian is asked, that everyone in the world is being asked. God knows what's going on. He knows that suffering, but he will not take away our freedom of choice, our free will. Will we please turn to God so that he can act to set things right? He's waiting, he's willing, but it all depends on us, because God will not take away our free will. Well, thank you for joining me today. And like I said, it's a hard question, and I hope you found some answers in it, some comfort from it. Once again, I'm the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Gaver, Presbyterian minister and questioning pastor, and I just wish you a very blessed day. Take care. God bless, and see you next time.